everybody. Welcome to the Well Below Average podcast with Nick Nepic, Roy White, and me, Adam Ish. Today it's just Nick and I, the old school lineup. Nick, how you doing today?
I'm good. I guess Roy didn't survive the Frozen party. I guess he didn't make it. It was too much, so we're flying solo today. Or
Yes.
not solo, but without Roy.
Yeah. So if you see Roy, a tall man, blonde man with a Fu Manchu, wandering around in panic, please let us know so we can recover him. He's out there in the wilderness. So you've had an exciting weekend. You're home alone. Is this the first time since the baby's been born? Second time?
One time I was gone for a night. I went and my wife's mom and sister were in town, so I let them have a girls' weekend, and I went and visited a buddy of mine from college. But this is the first extended time that I've been home and they're away. So they're visiting my wife's parents, just a quick weekend to go see the grandparents, and it's been just me. It's pretty weird, getting pretty restless. But the good thing is March Madness is on, so I've been able to watch basketball uninterrupted. Can we watch a movie or can I put something else on? I've been able to keep it on the main TV, not relegate it to the laptop, and enjoy it. But I'm excited for them to come back. Now that I have a kid, you really do miss them. It's a real thing, very much so. So I'm excited for them to be back tomorrow. But yeah, it's been just me and the cat all weekend.
It doesn't happen much, but I do find when I am alone, which is rare. I have 3 kids, wife, so it's hard to get them all out of the house. But it's enjoyable for the first little while, but then you get restless. I start living in squalor, and I get I forget how much my wife does to maintain this day to day.
Right, yeah. So they're tonight's the last night, and so it's been good. I've eaten I ate frozen pizza. I went out and got some fried chicken with a friend. I had barbecue, and then last night for dinner I went back to my college days and had some cereal. So here we are.
Nothing like it. Well, we got a great show. We have obviously our normal witty banter. We're going to be talking a little sports, quite a bit happening on the Cowboys front. Got a couple of news stories we'll blast through, but the big thing is we have your friend, Jared Sandler of Rangers fame, Radio Rangers fame, joining us here in a little bit. Baseball.
Yeah, so baseball is actually happening. Spring training is underway, so Jared will join us. He's actually in Arizona, so he'll join us from spring training here in just a bit. And Adam, have you been to spring training? I don't know if we talked about this. Have you ever been?
So I graduated from seminary in 2019, and my gift was supposed to be my dad was going to take me to spring training 2020, and
here we are.
Lockdown, pandemic, and I was so excited. That was I was almost in tears when he told me. I was like, and I was so happy. And then no, I haven't been.
Yeah, I've never been either.
Next year, show trip, spring training.
There we go.
We'll make it. We'll make it work. But let's give a shout out to our sponsors, who you can barely see behind me, because I don't know how to work this thing. I'll go first with Local Menace. We've talked about them every episode for a while here, but they're a Dallas-based streetwear brand. I'm trying to get my arm right to get the fuzzies out.
It's like it's
whatever.
The yellow. It's the yellow shirt.
The yellow shirt. They do amazing art. It's an artist-owned streetwear company based out of Dallas. I just said that. Localmenace.com. They have t-shirts. They have hoodies. Getting a little warmer. Not really. It's still kind of hoodie weather. The hats are amazing. Always putting out new designs and new products. So check them out at localmenace.com. Use code BEARDCREW for 25% off. Let them know we sent you. Get a big chunk of that bill off, and you get some amazing gear to walk around Dallas.
And then also we've got Rodeo Coffee. right there behind Adam, that black shirt. You can check them out. They are in the Walsh neighborhood, right over here in West Fort Worth, off of 30. I think it's off of 30, right there, way West Fort Worth. And they're there Thursday through Sunday, 7 to 11:30. On Saturdays and Sundays, they also have breakfast tacos, but they've got all sorts of drip coffee, lattes, specialty drinks, all those things. You can also get their small batch roasted coffee at the truck as well. You can also check them out online, so just look them up. Follow them on social media. They're real good about posting any updated hours, any changes, any new things that they're offering. So for a very quality cup of coffee or bag of coffee, check out Rodeo Coffee.
So, do they sell online? I'm looking at their thing. Can you get coffee shipped?
They did for quite a while. I don't know if they might have since changed that because they're just busy with the coffee truck. Mm-hmm. But I know for quite some time, because I've ordered some before, you could order it online, but maybe not anymore.
I don't think they can currently, but yeah, go check them out if you're in the area. Wonderful.
Well, disregard that. Don't order it online. If you do, it's an imposter. It is not the real thing.
No, and that's the best coffee. It's worth the trip to, fly into Dallas Fort Worth International, get an Uber, over to the west side of Fort Worth.
Gas prices are going down.
Yeah. So let's do that. But let's get into our show a little bit here. A couple of things. Speaking of gas prices, this is something Roy put on his Twitter. I thought was just super interesting. That in Dallas, someone was selling some illegal gas out of their backyard.
What? I did not see this.
So Dallas police raided a property in Oak Cliff for stolen gas. So these people had been stealing gas and selling it for discount in their backyard. So, like a Robin Hood situation? I feel like that's kind of, how you could paint it. They're selling it. It's pretty. I want to color it as the good guys, but they were stealing gas, and I believe they were even going as far as Houston. A manager in Houston said that they stole 350 gallons of gas over 3 days from the underground tanks. Is what they were using to, build their inventory up. I wonder how they got the word out. Like, you can't put a sign in your front yard, unleaded for $3. They've got to advertise it some way. But I'm not mad about this because I'm all about sticking it to the man. And so if they can stick it to the man just a little bit, then that's fine. Pretty clever. Also, if the fact that they're able to steal that much and not get caught for a while, also pretty impressive. Well, here's this paragraph right here. This is going to take them out of the good guy category. Oh, no. They were actually using credit card skimmers to steal people's card information to then take those credit cards and go around and steal gas using. So they were stealing from. Okay, so they're mega jerks. I take it all back. Yeah, I take it all back. I should have led with that. Yeah. Now I look like the bad guy. Well, screw those people. I'm cutting all this part out. If you're stealing money from anyone, especially just hardworking citizens, I can't get behind that. So, never mind. Steal from corporations, not citizens. Of course, then they're going to raise their prices and take it from citizens. So. And it's a vicious cycle. Yeah. Yay, capitalism. So we got a few music news. Have you heard Dolly Parton's request to be removed from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Yeah, I did see that. I didn't read her statement, so I don't know the reasoning, but I did see it. Essentially, I didn't pull up the story, but I've read about it enough. She just doesn't feel like she belongs there. She's never produced a rock album before, even though in her statement she said she's wanted to for years. But asked that there's other people that are deserving and take her off so she doesn't interfere with anybody else's chances of getting elected or selected, whatever it is.
I respect that because I feel like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, every year I'm like, we might as well just call this the Music Hall of Fame, because the rock and roll genre has become very loose when it comes to that. So I mean, I don't really care for Dolly Parton at all. Not that I dislike her, but whatever. But I do respect that quite a bit.
Yes. Well, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame denied her request, and it's going to keep her on the ballot.
Well,
so what do you think happens if she gets elected or selected? I don't know the proper term there, but
yeah.
Does she deny it again? Does she reluctantly go?
Yeah, you don't have to accept it, do you?
I don't think you have to. I mean, I guess they can induct you all you want. You just don't have to show up for the big concert.
Right.
So, also, do you remember the similar with the what's his name? Why am I blanking on his name? Legendary artist from the '60s, played guitar.
I couldn't tell you.
Here. Why am I forgetting his name? Lay Lady Lay, All Along the Watchtower, the original.
Let me. I've got a smartphone in my hand. Let me.
Just rambling
look it up here.
About it.
Jimi Hendrix?
Not Jimi Hendrix, the original.
It's just the first thing that showed up on Google, so I don't.
Bob Dylan.
Okay.
So Bob Dylan won the Nobel Prize for poetry or literature, something like that. The Nobel Prize is like a $2 million. They give you quite a bit of money, and the only caveat is you have to go and like perform or demonstrate your piece. So if you want a literature, you got to go and read your book. If you science or whatever, you got to go demonstrate your findings. If it's Peace Prize, I guess you just give a speech. But he won for, I believe, literature several years back, but refused to do the concert. And so they were at a stalemate, and eventually he agreed to do one song for the ceremony and able to be able to receive his prize for the Nobel committee or whatever.
Didn't know any of that. I couldn't. Well, I guess I can name one Dolly Parton song. Who else? Do we know who else is getting? Who's on the ballot, so to speak? Any other controversial ones?
Let's see. I do have a smartphone. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 2022. Let's see. Let's go here. 2022 nominees are. On the video, please don't play. It looks like. Oh, okay. So Beck's got a couple of good songs and was pivotal on the Futurama. Pat Benatar.
Okay.
Kate Bush. Never heard of him. Devo. Come on. The hats alone.
Yeah.
Devo?
I know it sounds familiar.
No, Whip It. Whip It Good.
Okay, yeah. Got it.
Duran Duran, who I think deserves to be in. I'm surprised they're not in.
Yeah, I would have told you they were.
Eminem.
It's okay. See, this is exactly what we were just talking about. Great artist, Hall of Fame artist, not rock and roll. Just change the name.
Yeah. The Eurythmics did the original Sweet Dreams. Judas Priests. Let's see. Bella Kuti, never heard of him. Looks very, very, very old picture. MC5, Motor City 5.
Okay.
You ever heard of them?
This is a lot. No, but this is a lot more than I expected on the
Motor
on
City
the list
5
here.
is a picture, really old picture of a bunch of shirtless white dudes with afros in front of an American flag. New York Dolls. They were big in the early punk scene, kind of glam rock. Dolly Parton. Oh, here's my vote. Rage Against the Machine.
Okay, yeah.
Lionel Richie.
Soft rock, maybe. Like maybe, but still a stretch.
Yeah. Carly Simon. If my dad was on, would go on a tirade about how overrated she is. A Tribe Called Quest, so another hip hop artist. Dionne Warwick, and I think we finally hit the end.
Man, inspired list.
Yeah, they really. I guess it makes sense. I mean, yeah, I guess. Yeah, you want the biggest reach as possible. You want as many people visiting your Hall of Fame every year as you can. So,
right.
Why not nominate them all?
What other news stories do we have?
One last one. We could skim through this real quick. It's more of a topic. Have you seen that police departments have been sending over the excess military gear that they've been buying on cheap from the U.S. government over to Ukraine to help them fight?
No, I didn't see. I didn't see that, but it's a little bit of an odd way to get there, right? Like most people would say, maybe not most, that our police don't need military gear, like heavy duty military gear. So why are they buying it anyway? And now they're the ones sending it to a place that does need it.
Yes, I'm hugely against militarization of police force. It completely undermines the mission of peacekeeping in a city. But yeah,
right.
I thought, very circuitous route to get much needed equipment to our friends in Ukraine against, I don't even say the Russian people are our enemies. It's like there's like 8 Russian dudes that have all the power that suck.
Right. Yeah, the higher ups of the Russian government.
Yeah, so but that was really it for the news. And this is where we really needed Roy, because I wanted to have a deep discussion about what show we were going to watch as a show moving forward.
Yeah, we need a new one. Is there anything like brand new coming out that you are aware of?
I mean, Moon Knight on Disney Plus, but that's a Marvel thing, so I don't know how stoked you're going to be about it.
Yeah, I'm out. Yeah, I really don't have anything that's new, at least. We'll have to keep an eye out for something here.
And I have to get on. I don't get on Netflix a lot. I know they're putting out stuff all the time that's usually pretty watchable. So.
Well, but Netflix also casts a really wide net. Like, there's a lot of crap on Netflix. Like, there's some really good stuff, but there's also some not good at all stuff.
I still haven't watched Squid Games.
Very good. Now, I will say, maybe this doesn't surprise you, I didn't love it as much as everyone else did, but I really liked it. Very good, enjoyable. Hard to watch multiple episodes back, because it just can get kind of gory, kind of heavy. But a good show, worth the watch. So.
Yeah, I have a tough time. Foreign movie show with subtitles, not the worst thing in the world. I cannot stand English dubbing on foreign stuff. I hate it when the mouth doesn't line up and I'm out.
Yeah, we did that for Squid Game just because it was so much, and it threw me off at times. It's easy to check out that way.
Well, yeah, so we'll keep an eye out for a new show. I had a game I was going to play, but I want to wait for Roy. So next week we're going to do Sports What If.
Okay.
Your what if questions. I have a few here. But let's
like what if I was a professional basketball player, like that?
Exactly.
Okay.
What if the coach would have put me in the fourth quarter of the big game? We'd have gone all the way to state, man. All the way to state.
Oh man.
We'd have lost
so good.
More. So we got Jared coming up in a little bit. Let's touch on a couple of topics here before we bring on and talk some baseball. Cowboys have had a interesting week. Browns get a new quarterback, and it's tournament time. You go. What are we going to talk about?
Well, the tournament's been awesome. my favorite 2 days of the sports year are Thursday, Friday, the first days of the tournament. Just phenomenal. Constant basketball. We've had some big upsets. I would like to talk, though, a little football if we could. Deshaun Watson is now a Cleveland Brown, which was kind of out of nowhere, pretty not exciting, pretty just like all of a sudden. And I'm a Steelers fan. My quarterback of basically my entire life had his own demons that he fought, skeletons in the closet, so to speak. So I don't want to make light of that. But at the same time, Deshaun Watson was accused by, and correct me if I'm wrong here, up to 22 women of sexual harassment, sexual assault. All criminal charges were dropped. So there's that. There are still civil things to deal with, and he will surely be suspended by the league. We'll wait to see how long. An interesting piece of news or a quote came out this morning that I was compelled by. The attorney, and I can't, maybe Tony Busby is his name. I can't remember. If I'm butchering that, I'm sorry. The attorney for the women that was representing the women, he said that no NFL team reached out to him to hear that side of the story. So like the Browns said, they thoroughly investigated everything with Deshaun Watson. He said, nobody reached out to me, and I can't blame them, because if they knew what I knew, they would come to a different decision. So feels kind of slimy, not kind of, very. And, the Browns are automatically going to be a contender of sorts in what's now a stacked AFC. We'll see how long he gets suspended. Zeke got 6 games reduced to 4. Like, Deshaun Watson has to get more than that. Has to. So that's up to the league to figure out.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Browns' due diligence was, are the charges going to come back up or any other charges going to come out? Probably came, asking whatever investigator or, prosecutor in Houston. And, he's going to cut a bunch of checks, and it's probably all going to go away.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Well, and the way his contract is, it's like a $230 million contract, but the way that it's set up is he's only getting paid $1 million this year, so he won't lose hardly any money because of that. So the NFL stays in the news. It's obviously big news. And we're about a month away from the draft, a little over a month away. So we've got that too. But that was the biggest thing that came out. And then, of course, the Cowboys, like you said, continue to have interesting weeks, and not in the best way.
No. Did you happen to hear any of or read any of Randy Gregory tweets he started today?
I saw them briefly. I don't remember them, but I did see he was going on a little bit of a Twitter spree.
Yes. Essentially, yeah, the Cowboys, I think one of the tweets was they deal in bad faith. They did the whole time. Look, how many people have they signed? What are they doing? You need to ask them the questions why they're not, now I'm paraphrasing, but you need to bring these questions up to them, not me. And I hate that he's gone. Honestly, I thought he was great, but I'm not mad. People are like, Twitter is obviously a very reactionary place, but it seems like people are very hurt that a guy that, hasn't played that many games for the Cowboys left for a better opportunity for himself.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. I'm not a Cowboys fan, so I'm not emotionally invested, but my thought was, like, he's really never been on the field all that much. Like, he's produced when he's been on the field. He had a great year this year, but he made some of the biggest mistakes in that playoff game that more or less cost them the game. And has, had his own issues to stay on the field. And if you're going to pay him that much, you're crossing your fingers that things change. And, what is the old, when people show you who they are, believe them. He's really got to change things in order to live up to that contract. So, obviously it makes you worse on the field. Like, you're not better, but at the same time, I don't know that I would be, devastated. I think really what it is there has been so little traction everywhere else in free agency with the Cowboys. I think they're like the only team, or they were the only team, the last team, I should say, to sign an outside free agent. And so there was so little that happened that was sort of the build-up. Like, okay, now we're frustrated because of all this. So that's where I'm at on it.
Yeah. I guess my big frustration is they did all this stuff to clear all this cap room, and they had at one point, I don't know if you hear the drill hit or not, at one point had somewhere near $30 million of cap space, and where's Bobby Wagner? Where's Tyrann Mathieu? Where's these guys?
Still unsigned, both of them.
I thought Matthews agreed with. So he came to terms with somebody.
Oh, Tyrann Mathieu?
Yeah. No.
Let me see if I can find that on my phone here.
Why am I blinking? Yeah, he agreed. You see anything?
I'm on Adam Schefter's Twitter right now. I don't see anything. I didn't think he had.
Oh, 49ers. I heard he had agreed to terms with 49ers. But no, I'm not seeing anything anymore. Maybe that Twitter is a bad place to get information.
Yeah. But yeah, those two guys still unsigned. And the saving grace right now for Dallas is the division stinks, right? And the NFC overall is pretty weak. Like, you've got the Rams, Packers, Bucks, Cowboys, Cardinals are like the only like real contenders. I mean, maybe the 49ers. But I think the fan base has every right to be frustrated.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. Still a lot of off-season left. But you know what we got left? We got an amazing guest right now. Let's get him on. Jared Sandler.
Joining us now, my old friend, Jared Sandler. You can hear him on the Rangers pre- and post-game. You can hear him doing some play-by-play in spring training on 105.3 The Fan. He also does Texas Legends basketball. He runs a nonprofit. Jared, you stay really busy, so thanks for taking the time to hang out with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Old friend, though, that makes it seem like we're not current friends. I feel like we're current friends.
I guess I get more like old friend, like we've known each other a while.
Okay.
Old for a previous life of mine, since I, not in the media business anymore. So, old friend in that way.
Okay. So our friendship hasn't expired or anything.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. But all good things come to an end. So it could be any day now, really. But baseball did not come to an end. You're out in Arizona, right now?
I am. I'm currently sitting in Surprise Stadium. The Rangers did not have a game today, but the Royals and Diamondbacks are playing. So I haven't really been watching the game closely, but the fact that they're still playing is probably not a good thing for the broadcasters, because it's tough to fill time for a spring training game. And when spring training game exceeds 3 hours and you got a bunch of guys you've never heard of playing to finish it up, it can get a little rough. So I feel badly for our Royals friends who are sitting to my right and Diamondbacks friends to my left.
Yeah, I checked out, I had to run to the grocery store yesterday, and so I flipped on the radio, and you and Matt were calling the game. It was like the bottom of the ninth. And Matt was talking about there was some guy, like, y'all didn't have any information. So if he comes into the game, like, who knows? And then he brought up, you said, like, Krzyzewski for Coach K, and it kind of went off the rails. I really enjoyed it personally. So I can imagine that is tough. How are the crowds out there with the spring training delay and being kind of like all of a sudden?
So first of all, Peter Strzelecki was the guy you're talking about. Thankfully, he did not come in the game. But crowds have been good. Surprise Stadium is not the most well attended of the facilities here in Arizona. The Scottsdale ballparks are usually packed. Scottsdale Stadium where the Giants play, Talking Stick where the Diamondbacks play, and they're obviously the home team here. And then Sloan Park where the Cubs play, Dodgers games. I mean, for a lot of reasons. But the attendance here has been pretty good for the first two Rangers games. And I think what's really neat is that I think last spring, I'm pretty sure they didn't allow anyone on the backfields. And that's where, it's really fun for fans because you see the players walking from field to field. They're a lot more relaxed. They're willing to take time to sign and take a picture or what have you. And I mean, you get a pretty up close view of the players, and it's almost like going to a high school game and, you got your fingers on the fence staring through the fence to watch players play, except instead of Johnny Jr., who's good at math, it's, your favorite Major League Baseball player. So I'm glad the fans have that experience again. And I think the players like it because it gives them a little energy when they're going through the monotony of spring training.
Yeah. Well, Adam, I'm going to let you kind of lead the way here. I've got my Duke shirt on there in the last 6 minutes of the second round against Michigan State right now. So I'm hoping they can pull out a win here. If not, it'll be great for Jared to be on with us while they lose. So let's hope for not a loss.
Yeah, I keep seeing your eyes cut up and this number.
Yeah, it's right there.
So you're talking about, you just mentioned the Royals and Diamondbacks are playing. Talk to me about like yesterday's game, right? They lost, Rangers lose 11-0. How was that for a broadcaster, someone like you that has to call that game and sit through that game? Do you have your tactics, or is it just mentally exhausting to watch those types of spring training games?
Yeah, those games are never fun, and it's more fun when you're on the right side of that. But I'd say that even gets old. We love the excitement and the tension of a close ball game. In spring training, in some ways it's easier because you don't feel as obligated to be as serious. You can make light of the results. When in a regular season game, when it's 11-0 in the eighth inning, we're probably not going to be locked in dead serious, but we also aren't going to make light of what's going on. We might just divert attention a little bit. We have some fun doing some trivia stuff or, what have you to get through it. But, in spring training, you can kind of poke fun at the result because it really just doesn't matter. What's difficult about it, though, is that usually, especially early on, it's a bunch of guys you might have heard of, but they're from minor league camp. And so your opportunity to have spoken to them and talk to them and have a knowledge base to share information is just a little more limited. Anyone can go on the internet and Wikipedia someone or, find their bio. But I think what really separates broadcasters is their ability to take advantage of the access that they have to glean information, to get stories and find things that, aren't just readily available on Wikipedia. And so you don't have the ability to do that as much. And when it's an 11-0 game, it's a perfect time to tell some of those stories. So, but I would say that, what is most challenging, whether it's a close game or not, are just the games that drag on forever and ever. When you get late in a game in the seventh inning and you got one of these relievers who takes a minute between pitches, and it's just tough. It kind of kills your rhythm as a broadcaster. So yesterday's game was actually, I think, under 3 hours. So for an 11-0 game to have that sort of pace, it makes it a little bit easier, but obviously a little more fun when the game's closer.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I've watched spring training games, obviously most of my adult life, and you can tell even on close games, those once the subs start coming in, you can even hear the broadcasters kind of just really kind of hem-hawing, hoping it ends.
What's tough, Adam, is that, we're taught as broadcasters to, always make sure not to lose sight of what's at stake. And in a regular season game, even for a 100-loss Rangers team, there's always something at stake, whether it's, hey, trying to avoid 100 losses and the fight towards that, or, maybe it involves an individual person, but there's just, it's tough to find anything that's truly at stake in a spring training game. I mean, a player having a great spring doesn't mean anything. A player having a bad spring doesn't mean anything. Maybe if they're fighting for a roster spot, it does. But in terms of being able to forecast how it's going to set them up for success in the regular season, it's so tough to I guess, do a game I don't want to say that doesn't mean anything, but the meaning is certainly, far short of any regular season game in any circumstance whatsoever.
And it makes sense because spring training is obviously a ramp up to the regular season. With this kind of truncated spring training for the broadcasters, how does that affect how you kind of build into your, regular season, mid-season form? Is it easier? Is it harder? What do you think about it?
Yeah. So for us, I mean, I think it's usually like 34 spring training games. I don't know that we need 34 to get ready. So I think it for broadcasters it's fine. Now I would prefer it to be the full spring training because a lot of these cities and areas and businesses around really, I don't want to say depend. That might not be fair to all of them. Some do, but thrive in this month and a half stretch. And so for it to be cut short, I know it hurts them. For us as broadcasters, definitely having a spring training helps, gets us back in the rhythm, gets us back in the swing of things. We probably, Eric Nadel doesn't need more than a game to get ready, maybe a couple, and frankly, probably doesn't need any. But Matt's not far behind him in that, but, I'm still so young, and I do try to use these games as opportunities to get better, not just get ready, but get better. And so, from that standpoint, it does make these games interesting and fun, and helps. It's talked about how there's really no urgency, there's nothing on the line. It does help. I don't want to say manufacture that, but because that sounds forced and fake, but it does. Give me some purpose as a broadcaster, in addition to doing the job and helping to tell stories and have some fun, just trying to improve. So I do enjoy that part, but I think for me, the best part of spring training is just the opportunity to meet the new faces and develop those relationships and get, stories and information and stuff that, we're able to share during the season that helps connect the fans to the players, which I think is our greatest strength or our potential greatest strength. Because I know when I was growing up, any information about the players is always so cool. It humanizes them and it makes you feel like them, even though you've never had any sort of contact with them. So that's what this period of time is so great for us. And I'm thankful that we have even a few weeks to be able to do that.
Jared, you mentioned the new faces, and I want to talk about the Rangers a little bit, because the fan base, maybe the casual fan, maybe the most passionate fans, the complaint for the last several seasons was, give me something a new ballpark, give me something to be excited about. Well, they've kind of done that. Several big names now on the roster, going to be there for opening day. And that's exciting for people who, like me, I wouldn't just turn on a game on a Wednesday night. Now I probably will. Bring people up to speed on, some of those new faces. Have you gotten a chance to interact with them? What have you seen? What have you heard? Those kinds of things.
Yeah. So, the two big ones are Corey Seeger and Marcus Simeon. And, you're right, Nick. When the Rangers traded Joey Gallo last year, even though Adolis Garcia was having a good season, he was an unknown. And you'd look at their lineup and, I can only imagine what some of these teams, when the Rangers were on the road with their fan bases, you get Joe Ranger fan in, pick a rant in Kansas City, and they're looking at the roster like, who are these guys? And it was different. It was a different feel. Unfortunately, the way baseball is structured, the rebuild, tear down, you get rewarded for it. And that's something that the players have fought against and try to combat to some degree in the collective bargaining agreement negotiations. And thankfully, it doesn't seem like the Rangers are going to go through 3 straight 100-loss seasons. But I don't know that they had to lose 100 games. I think they could have accomplished the same thing, losing 93, 95, whatever. But they did need to take a step back to reset, filter out the roster. And there's just no incentive to sign guys when they are free agents at 31 years old if you're not trying to move the arrow upwards. And thankfully we got past that, and now the Rangers have these names. I think So I was actually with Corey Seeger when he was in his second year after signing with the Dodgers, when I was broadcasting for the Great Lakes Loons. And Corey's a really good kid. He's quiet. He's not gonna, be the big personality in front of the cameras, but really good person. And so it was cool to reconnect with him. We've kept touch a little bit over the years, seeing each other at spring training. So it was, fun for me. It's a familiar face. And I actually haven't had the chance to speak with Marcus Simeon yet. Because after the press conference, when he was introduced, he got just swarmed by people, and I try not to add on to that. And we've only had 2 days, in the clubhouse, and he hasn't been around. But I actually played beer pong against Marcus Simeon in 2010. So
okay.
I look forward to sharing that story. That Marcus was in the Northwoods League, which is a league similar to the Cape Cod League. People are probably more familiar with the Cape Cod League. In the upper Midwest, and he played for a team called the Alexandria Beetles. I was broadcasting for the Brainerd Lakes area Lunkers, and we had a few players from Cal, which is where Marcus went, including a guy named Chad Christ. Chad was a catcher, a really good player, got drafted by the Cubs. I think he only played a couple years and is now, in the business world. But that ensuing fall, the Rangers, I went to USC, and the USC played at Cal for football. So I went up a day early, and I stayed with Chad. And Chad and Marcus didn't live together. They were really close, though. And so one night we went out, and we were playing beer pong. And Marcus was playing with this soccer player. And his wife, or now wife, his girlfriend, was hanging out. She wasn't playing. She was a volleyball player at Cal. And I was playing with Chad, and we lost. And that soccer player named Alex would burst onto the scene a few years later. Lo and behold, I played beer pong against Marcus Simeon and Alex Morgan.
I don't believe that. I don't believe the add-on of Alex Morgan. I'm going to choose to believe that that's not true.
I wish I could say I was lying, especially because I hate losing and I lost to them. But so I look forward to sharing that story with Marcus. He's a guy who's going to be a strong voice in the clubhouse. Maybe like Corey, I don't think he's necessarily going to be a big time, in front of the camera type guy, but not in a bad way. Adrian Beltre wasn't like that, and fans loved Adrian. I think these guys are going to give fans a lot to love. And then, some of the other guys, Cole Calhoun, Brad Miller, recently Matt Carpenter. The Rangers have done a great job adding some veterans who have bigger personalities, who are going to help in establishing that culture and developing that leadership. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. It's definitely a much different feel in the clubhouse and around spring training this year than in years past, without question.
So you mentioned something about like the way it's structured, how people for the rebuilds. What are your thoughts on I don't know exactly when it's gonna kick in, but the lottery system, the new way they're gonna start doing the draft? Are you a fan of that, or did I explain it?
Yeah. So I think it's the top six, or the bottom six teams enter into a lottery. So if you're the seventh worst team, you're gonna pick seventh, but 1 through 6, I could be wrong, but 1 through 6. You're going to, be in a lottery. It's a good start. I don't think it's, such a change that's going to totally de-incentivize the idea of tanking. I mean, you look at what the Reds have done, what the A's have done, some of these teams, it doesn't seem like it's getting in the way of them tanking. And sadly, some of these teams look at it probably as, hey, whatever, if I have the 5th pick, then I spend less money. I don't have to pay as much as I would for the 2nd pick. I think the spending floor that the players did not get the owners to agree to would probably be the biggest tanking deterrent, or at least, would help in that regard. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a start. I just think tanking, the players, I don't mean it's not an indictment against them. Their incentive is that teams that tank aren't going to spend as much, and that means less money to go around, to the players, right? That's a big thing for them. I just think tanking is really bad for business for a ton of reasons, in baseball specifically. I don't think it's as bad in other sports, and the first reason is, let's take the Cincinnati Bengals. You tank, you get Joe Burrow. not only can you get excited during the season in which you're tanking because you are concurrently watching Joe Burrow and all these players who could, potentially be at your pick play and get excited about what they're doing. And them, you connect with them. They're known commodities. And you know what? In a lot of cases, they're going to play right away. Similarly in basketball, obviously. In baseball, there isn't nearly as much of a familiarity with even the college players. Jack Leiter is a little bit different because he's got a familiar last name and plays for a powerhouse program and threw a no-hitter last year. But I don't think a lot of people had any clue who Judd Fabian was. And around this time last year, Judd Fabian, who ended up going back to Florida, which is another big-time program, he was a potential first overall pick. So there's not that connection. And also, these guys are not going to play right away. So, your fan who doesn't follow the minor leagues, it's kind of a so what? Like, cool, we got Jack Leiter. When can I see him? And then the other thing is the season's so long. So to sit through, an NFL season in which your team tanks, I mean, first of all, it's just one game a week. You're not dealing with it every night. And in baseball, you could be out of it on May 5th. And that means you've got the rest of May, June, July, August, September of games just about every day. And it's tough. And the Rangers went through it last year. They haven't been competitive for a few years, but last year was the first true, hey, we're taking big steps back. We're stripping this down. And it's a really unenjoyable thing. And the other part of it too, guys, the last thing I'll say.
Live reaction to Duke right now. Sorry.
Yeah, so I see them down or up by one. Oh, they should have 3. They're up 4. What an underdog story. I can't believe. The other thing is people lose jobs over this. It's the reality. If you lose 100 games, people are going to lose jobs. And so I also think about the livelihoods of people. And they're kind of caught in the line of fire, essentially. And, there are people who deserve to lose jobs sometimes, but in a lot of cases, there are people who don't. And I just think tanking also adds to that. And I hate to think about that.
You mentioned the spending floor, and that's something I see a lot on Twitter in baseball, like the Dodgers, for example, spending so much money. And then they're I casually follow the Pirates because I'm a Steelers fan, I'm a Penguins fan, and the Pirates spend, peanuts as compared to the Dodgers. And so that's not that would not have been like a salary cap. You can only spend this much, but you do have to spend whatever the lowest amount was. Are you in favor of either of those things, a cap or a floor? Do you think that would help help these smaller market teams that just don't or can't spend the same money as a big market?
I'm definitely in favor of a floor. The cap thing is tough because I'm not in favor of these guys not being able to earn as much as they can. And I think in some ways, not having a cap helps some of these non-major markets as long as they're willing to spend. You look at the NBA, if everyone can offer the same contract, max deal, it doesn't allow some of these smaller markets to separate themselves. So I don't think I'm in favor of a cap. What I'm in favor of, Nick, is owners who are willing to spend. You can't tell an owner to, they own the team, they can do what they want. I just wish there was a way to better, vet owners for lack of a better word, and make sure you've got owners who are going to do their part to try and bring winning to an organization. I mean, Pittsburgh's a tough one for me because that's a great sports town. That's not like some small middle of nowhere town that, shouldn't be in a position to spend money. The Oakland situation is tough. I get it. Their stadium situation is, definitely a huge hurdle, but at the end of the day, different ownership group and you're spending more money. Same with Cincinnati. I mean, I know that these owners sometimes can lose, millions or maybe even $1 billion in a month because, whatever. And, oil goes down and their net worth goes down 10%. But I just hate that, they're owners who spend so little amount of money and it really creates that divide. So I'm definitely in favor of a floor. I'm not in favor of a cap, but I do like the system baseball has where there are penalties for exceeding certain thresholds. So I think that kind of keeps things in check, and maybe evens the playing field or is a good deterrent. But without a spending floor, it really kind of is all for naught.
Yeah. I had this great question, I promise you, but I'm having plumbing done, and they're literally under me right now. And I've been, so I'm gonna take
personal plumbing or
what type of plumbing?
Or household plumbing, like if
the sewage line under my house is broken and they're tunneled underneath me, and they're drilling, and it's like I hit mute. Very distracting. I want to bring it back to the Rangers a little. Obviously, they made a ton of moves. Do you see any more before the season starts, especially in the pitching area, or do you think this is pretty much the team we're going to roll with?
Wouldn't be surprised if they signed a starter who could be a depth option, just to give them another player from whom to choose. I think the trade conversations are ongoing. There are two pitchers with Cincinnati, Luis Castillo and Tyler Mahle, who I'd imagine would be available, or they are available. I'd imagine the Reds would be prepared to trade them now, if not now, before the deadline. Oakland's got two, and Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas. I just think, with where the Rangers are, there's a certain prospect package that just doesn't make sense for them, because these guys have 2 years left of control, and that doesn't really fit with the Rangers window. The Rangers, it's not like they're sitting there with like next year's the year they're going to be all in to win it. And so I don't think they're reluctant to part ways with players, but it's got to make sense. And you're not going to trade for these guys unless you plan on extending them. And that's not going to be cheap. So I think to some degree, the Rangers are of the mindset of, hey, we'll pay to play. We're not like unwilling to trade players, but to trade a guy like Josh Young or Cole Winn or Jack Leiter, it just makes no sense. And I think for some of these guys, that's kind of where the ask is right now. Even a guy like Josh Smith or Ezekiel Duran, it just doesn't make sense. So I think, from what I've gathered, if the ask drops, I think the Rangers, are very much in play there. But I think they also are very content to roll with what they have, knowing that their starting rotation is subpar. There's no delusions about that. They're not trying to sell anyone that, this is a rotation that, maybe has 2 or 3 guys who are going to be here for the next 5 years. And then free agency is going to yield some really good pitchers next year. And Aaron Nola and Jacob deGrom being probably two of the best. And the Rangers, what I'll tell you is they got a lot more money that they can spend, and they are ready and willing to do it. And so I think that they're going to help build their pitching staff both through trades and through free agency. But the trade market's not going to come at the expense of a guy like Cole Winn or Jack Leiter, because I think those are guys the Rangers think and hope can be a part of the solution when they are trying to win World Series titles.
Have you seen any tangible difference? Chris Young is the general manager. I assume that's his title. Since he's been there, have you seen any big differences in how just the baseball operations are run? Anything noticeable?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and John Daniels, who is incredibly candid, I think always, but acknowledged this sometime last year. I was in the car, and he had said this privately, but he admitted this publicly, that one of the best things that Chris Young is going to bring is just new ideas and a fresh perspective without any bias. And JD admitted, he said, listen, I've been here for nearly 2 decades, and we've had a lot of success with a group of people, and you develop these relationships in some ways blind spots. And so there's been a lot of staffing changes, and I think John Daniels has given Chris Young the freedom to make those decisions, people in high leverage roles. And it's just Chris Young's assessment as to whether or not they are the right guys for the job. Whereas it was probably tougher for John Daniels because, not only the relationships with these guys extensive, but you've had success with them. You got so close for, really out of a 7-year stretch, you had 6 really good years. And so I think that's been the biggest difference. They're both involved in the personnel decisions. The people ask, like, the Seeger and Simeon signings, that more Chris Young or John Daniels? I mean, if anything, if it is more of one than the other, it's still probably more John Daniels. But the day-to-day stuff, the stuff that's not so high level. I mean, Chris Young's taken a lot off of John Daniels' plate. And, I know that John Daniels and any GM, they're kind of polarizing. People love him, they hate him, what have you. This was all John Daniels' choice. He wanted to do this when Chris Young retired. He wanted to hire Chris Young. Chris Young decided to work for Major League Baseball. And so the Rangers hired a guy named Shiraz Raymond, and it was done with the intention that, he could be the guy that would take stuff off of JD's plate. And just, I don't think that relationship materialized. And Shiraz was let go last year by Chris Young. But this is something that's been a few years in the making. John Daniels has done this for a long time. You don't see many GMs who've been in this role for that long. And, I think that Chris Young was kind of the guy that he had pegged as his successor. And slowly but surely, Chris Young is starting to take on more and more of the workload. And certainly as far as the in front of the camera type guy, I think you're starting to see a lot more Chris Young answering the GM questions than John Daniels.
I want to ask Jared about Chris Woodward, because I feel like the casual sports fan, for the most part, thinks that they can, the armchair quarterback, they can coach from their couch. Like in basketball, like, we need to shoot more. In football, they should run, this coverage. But in baseball, most people have no idea what they're talking about. I feel like more than other sports. What makes, and this is I don't feel like a great question, but I don't know how to word it. What makes a good manager? What puts a good manager from just an average manager, or a guy that gives you an advantage in baseball?
So I do think there are certain managers who give you an advantage with their in-game decision-making. It's tough to assess that with Chris Woodward because he's been trying to win poker hands with 2-7 offsuit, right? So I don't know that we have enough sample size to measure that. I mean, frankly, the only normal year he's had, 2019, they exceeded expectations. They were kind of in the playoff hunt at the trade deadline, and they had no business being in the playoff hunt. 2020 was such a weird year, and then last year you were in strip down mode. So tough to know. I do think, though, the most important thing is just the ability to motivate guys and run a clubhouse of 26 plus. You got more than 26 guys who are hurt but are around, and staff and whatnot, and balancing that. Jace Tingler, who was the Padres manager and, a long time with the Rangers, one of the best baseball guys I've been around. And, on that level, belongs as a manager. I think that, he would assess and people at the Padres would assess that he really struggled. He just wasn't, I hate to say equipped, but because he hadn't had managerial experience before. I mean, at any level. And so he was, didn't have the experience to deal with conflict. When stuff started going wrong in San Diego, it all snowballed. And I just think that the ability to deal with that is so huge. You're going to have conflict. I don't care whether you're the best team in the league or the worst. There is going to be conflict. Most of it isn't ever going to go public. It's not like stuff that we, are going to read about in the paper, because a lot of this stuff in the best situations stays behind closed doors. And your ability to handle conflict, I think, is huge. Your ability as the manager to get the key guys in the clubhouse to get your back, to be the extension of you, essentially, is huge. Guys, the Diamondbacks are playing right now, and Jeff Bannister's their bench coach. So I think about this with Banny. Jeff Bannister, I think, really things started to go wrong when he lost Prince Fielder. Their relationship soured, and Prince Fielder was probably the foremost vocal leader in that clubhouse. And on the flip side, I remember asking Steve Sparks, the Astros radio broadcaster, about AJ Hinch as a manager, and he said that AJ's best move was to get George Springer on his side, because it allows you to allow your players to police the clubhouse, so you're not just stomping through there constantly being a dictator. But also when there is conflict, when some guys want to MF you, you've got the leader saying, no, hey, this guy knows what he's doing, and you keep things going in one direction. As far as the in-game stuff, there is so much more data that helps dictate these decisions if you want, but there is a balance to the data versus the feel. I don't think any manager who manages solely off of the numbers is going to be successful over a sustained period of time. I think a manager who ignores the numbers completely is going to have a tough time being successful over a sustained period of time. It's the ability to combine the two and to know when to push this versus that button. So I think those things are really important. But to me, the first thing is the communication and the ability to handle good and bad situations, and to know how to manage a clubhouse and to deal with personalities. That to me is by far and away the quality I think is most important. And you look at some of the best managers in Major League Baseball, they, in almost all cases, share in that.
I want to see more suicide squeezes. I don't think we see enough of that, and I feel every manager fails in that part. But we are pushing up against the time. Do you have any more questions, Nick?
Well, I wanted to mention, so you mentioned Prince Fielder, and the only Prince Fielder story I have is the very first time I ever had to go to the Rangers clubhouse and get audio, and we were supposed to get a one-on-one interview. They got killed. It was 10-1, horrible game. Walk into the clubhouse. I'm in my early 20s, nervous out of my mind. Nobody's around. And in my head, I'm I got to get this audio to Jared right away, as fast as possible. Prince Fielder's sitting right there. So I walked up to him and asked him if I could have a minute. And he said, no. And that was it. He just straight up said no. And that was it. And I interviewed Mitch Moreland. And I wish I still had the audio, because it's probably the worst thing professionally I have ever done. But that's my Prince Fielder story.
That's funny.
But anyway, Jared, go ahead and plug all of the stuff that you do outside of sports real quick before we let you go.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I started the Sandlot Children's Charity, which supports kids with physical and intellectual disabilities, specifically in the way of providing financial assistance to either allow them to get involved in athletics or active programming, or maybe it's an athlete who competes at a high level and they need specialized training or what have you to advance their athletic pursuit. So all ends of that spectrum. It's not cheap to compete, especially for anyone, but especially if you need specialized equipment, or you need to be a part of a group that rents out gym space or ice time, whatever it might be. And the reason why we settled on this specifically is, first of all, obviously I'm passionate about sports, but doing research and talking to people, for people with disabilities, health and wellness is such a big need and an area of concern in a lot of cases. And so it helps address that, but also, it gives these kids an opportunity to learn new skills, and doing that helps with confidence. It allows them in a lot of ways to be a part of a group setting, whether they're a part of a team or maybe it's an individual sport, but there's a group element to it, and it helps with communication and social skills, and just there's so many things that go into this that you gain from playing sports. And we really love to support programs that are inclusive, that it brings people with and without disabilities together, because there's zero reason to segregate people just based on their abilities. So it's called the Sandlot Children's Charity. We have two big events typically, and as we continue to grow, hopefully more, but our huge event is in December at Topgolf in the Colony. And if people are interested in learning more, they can always reach out to me or just go to the website, thesandlot.org. But this is something that's incredibly important to me. It's something that, I hope we continue to grow. And, this is not an Instagram thing. This is not a PR thing. I could give a crap about that. This is an opportunity to make a difference and to take advantage of the platform that I have, which is not Dirk or Luca or Dak, but I'm fortunate to have a platform more than the average person with social media, and I don't think that there's an obligation to use it, but I have it, and I want to use it, and so I'm hoping that by using it can really make a difference, in the amazing community of folks with physical and intellectual disabilities.
That's amazing. Great cause. Great effort. And yeah, your work is known. I've seen it a lot last few years. So appreciate you doing that for that community.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Well, thanks for hanging out, Jared. Your hair looks good today, by the way. I feel like most of the time I used to see you, it wasn't styled this well. So nicely done there.
I had to go to dinner last night, so I put gel in my hair, and I haven't showered yet today, so it's kind of still in it. So.
Hey, good gel, because it's still holding up. But thanks for taking the time, Jared. We will catch you later. Enjoy the rest of spring training, and enjoy the baseball season coming up.
Hey, thanks so much, guys. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate you guys having me.
Being on.
All right, there goes Jared Sandler. He is the Rangers pre- and post-game show host on 105.3 The Fan. He is also doing some play-by-play with spring training, and you can hear him on the air calling those games. But Adam, that was some good stuff. I didn't want to say this, but I'm not very excited for baseball. That got me a little excited for baseball. I will say that.
I was not excited for baseball. I couldn't have cared less. Right here. We're right here.
Sorry, Duke won, by the way. Duke did
nice.
Win. So
I had
moving on here.
And I didn't bring it up. I wanted to. I joined his. Sorry, I'm telling two thoughts here. As soon as the lockout ended, for some reason that excitement hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was not expecting it. I'm super excited. I'm very upset about the whole Bally's Southwest situation.
It's terrible.
I'm gonna have to find a way to
still terrible. Like not like it's brand new terrible. Still terrible. So
continuously terrible. I don't think I've seen a Mavs game. I look at my phone, read Twitter updates, and look on my phone. But I'm excited about it. That's awesome getting to talk with Jared. But I'm in a Final Four bracket league, whatever you call it, with him, and I made a huge mistake. I misread his instructions, and it's like, $50 to join, up to 3 brackets, blah, 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 blah. I skimmed it. I don't remember where my was. And I do my 3 brackets. I, Venmo'd him the money, and then I looked at it again. And I saw that it was, up to 3 brackets, $50 per bracket. I'm like, oh, this man, $100. The exact same time I found out I needed to do plumbing work, which you want to hear much my plumbing work was estimated at?
Let me just guess.
Guess how much? Dig up 25 foot.
$8,000?
More. The first estimate was way more.
The first estimate was way more, so $18,000.
A little less.
15?
$14,000.
Golly.
I was like, I paid $55 for this house. Like that's
You're like, no, I can't do that.
No, like literally, this is like.
You're like, we'll just sell it and move at that point.
Well, that's what I was telling my wife. We're gonna have to get like a home equity loan or something to fix this house. We're almost paid off with it too, and it's like, oh, but no, my plumber is doing it for $8,000. We were able to scrape and scrimp that together in a day or two, but. Yeah.
Oh man,
don't have plumbing trouble.
Yeah, we haven't had any major plumbing trouble. I mean, we had to get some major foundation work done, and that was pretty expensive. But that's really been it with this house. But yeah, it was good to talk to Jared. Good guy, and got me excited for baseball. So opening day not too far away, and I think the Rangers will give us some things to root for this season. So, good stuff.
All right. Well, that's all I have. Do you have anything before we get out of here?
No, just go Duke. I got my shirt on here. Moving on to the Sweet 16, and excited to watch the rest of the tournament. Not sure what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. I've got a little bit of leftover barbecue. I wanted to do like a breakfast for dinner and do like a brisket taco, but I don't have any tortillas. So one more night where I've just got to survive and back to normalcy with the women in my house.
So you want to hear my tournament? My what do you call it? My bracket is 89% correct currently as we sit.
I feel like that's pretty good.
Yeah, but I'm still like not even the top 10.
But there's a lot of crazy people out there that fill out, all these brackets that, do all these. My rule has, and I love college basketball, I love the tournament. My rule has always been fill out a bracket or fill out multiple. Like if you have, multiple groups of friends doing brackets, fill it out on Selection Sunday that night or Monday morning, and then don't look at it. And I just don't look at it at all until after it's maybe till we get to like the Final Four, and just see how I did. So that is my rule when it comes to the tournament.
Yeah, I'm sure you got Duke winning it all. I picked Gonzaga. So.
I actually don't. I have Gonzaga winning it all. I have Duke. I think I have Duke losing in the Elite Eight. I think. Now they played really well today. They were pretty bad down the stretch of the season. Played really well today, but I have Gonzaga winning the whole thing.
Eye to eye on that. That's good. But that's all for me. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Jared, Roy. We hope that they find you.
No kidding.
We'll see you next week. Till then, stay above average.